Okay, class, picking up where we left off at, we have 10 plus or minus the square root of negative 20 over 2. Now, we know with this square root of negative 20, we could pull out I. So we add 10 plus or minus I. But we do have a perfect square in 20. The highest perfect square in 20 is 4. And we will have 5 left over, all over 2. So this will give us x is equal to 10 plus or minus I times 2. So it's 10 plus or minus I times 2, square root 5, all over 2. So let me write the rest of this over here. So we have x is equal to 10 plus or minus 2I square root 5 all over 2. Now if you notice, all three of these terms have 2 in common, so we can simplify out 2. So that'll give us 5 plus or minus I square root 5. Now this should be our final answer, but let's go up here just to be sure. Now when we go back up to the original problem, this is scrolling up just a little bit here. Now we look at all of these denominators. Now when we look at the denominators, we know that positive 3 and negative 4 are the only two numbers that would make these denominators negative. Now, since we don't have positive 3 or negative 4 as our final answer, we know that the answer that we have here with x equals 5 plus or minus I square root 5 is the final answer. Okay, now we go on to the next page. It says here, caution, do not confuse the procedure used to simplify a rational expression with those used to solve a rational equation. Remember, an equation has an equal sign. So basically, you cannot do what I just showed you if there's no equal sign in the problem. And I'm saying starting off an equal sign in the problem. Now, the difference between these two is that this has an equal sign and this does not. So I want you to see this as well. If I bring this 10 over x squared minus 9 over here to the other side, subtract 10 x squared minus 9 on both sides, we will have 2 over x plus 3 plus x over x minus 3 minus 10 over x squared minus 9 equals 0. Now if you notice, this side here is exactly the same as this side here, except for this has an equal sign in the problem. So that's when you can get rid of those denominators, but you cannot do that here. Now with this side here, when we go here to A, we must find a common denominator. So if we look here, we know x squared minus 9 is x plus 3 and x minus 3. Now, what we need to do, we need to get rid of these denominators. Well, not get rid of them. We need to find a common denominator. The common denominator, or the least common denominator, is x plus 3 times x minus 3. So now we look here, x plus 3, we know we're missing x minus 3. So we'll multiply that numerator and denominator by x minus 3. And then here with this x minus 3, we know we're missing the x plus 3. So we'll multiply the numerator and denominator by x plus 3. And since we already had the x plus 3, x minus 3, we don't need to do, oh, wait a minute, I put an equal sign here. We don't need to do anything except for rewrite this as 10 over x minus 3, x plus 3. Okay, so now, so we know this will give us 2x minus 6 all over x minus 3, x plus 3, plus x times x is x squared, x times 3 is 3x, all over x minus 3, x plus 3. And then that'll be minus 10 over x minus 3, x plus 3. Here, let me draw this little line here to separate this. Okay, so now we combine our like terms. We know our denominator is still going to be x minus 3, x plus 3. Our numerator, we know x squared will go out front. 2x plus 3x is 5x. Negative 6 minus 10 will give us negative 16. Now, if we look here, we have x squared plus 5x minus 16. Now, we cannot do anything else with this problem. So our final answer would be x squared plus 5x minus 16 all over x minus 3 in parentheses x plus 3. That'll be our final answer for A. Now B, now what I showed you here was this here. I had moved this here. This was only as a demonstration to you to show you that these two problems were primarily the same, except for this had an equal sign and this does not. But let's do this. I'm not going to use all of this here. Let's do what we did here. We already found the LCD. So I'm going to take this LCD and multiply it by this whole equation. So we will have x plus 3, x minus 3. And we'll multiply it by that whole equation. Now we know this x squared minus 9 is x minus 3 and x plus 3. Okay, so here, these x plus 3's will simplify out. You add 2x minus 6. These x minus 3's will simplify out, and you will have x squared plus 3x equals. This x plus 3 and x minus 3 will simplify out, and that will give you 10. Now, we combine like terms. This will give us x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 10. Now we will subtract 10 on both sides, and we will have x squared plus 5x minus 16 equals 0, which is basically what we got here for our numerator. But we cannot factor this without using the quadratic formula. Well, we can use the difference of two squares, but that would be not the difference of two squares, but completing the square. We could use completing the square, but that wouldn't, that would get kind of messy. So let's use the quadratic formula. So we have A is 1, B is 5, and C is negative 16. So we have x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now we substitute in those values. Now we will have x is equal to the opposite of 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared minus 4 times a is 1 and c is negative 16 all over 2 times a is 1. Now we have this, the opposite of 5 is negative 5 plus or minus the square root of, this is 25. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times a negative 16 is a positive 64 all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Now, we will have x is equal to negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 89 all over 2. Now the square root of 89, we know that that is a prime number. So our final answer here would be x is equal to negative 5 plus or minus square root of 89 all over 2. Now this would not make the denominator equal 0 because the denominator from the original problem, the only numbers that would make the denominator equal 0 from the original problem is 3 and negative 3. We look back up here. We know 3 would make this denominator 0. Negative 3 would make this denominator 0. And we know x squared minus 9 are just these two terms here, the x plus 3, the x minus 3, were those two expressions. So we know that x squared minus 9 would still have the two numbers, the 3 and negative 3, that would make that 0. So this down here that we have with the negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 89 over 2 is the acceptable answer and the final answer.